Justice League Gods and Monsters is the brand new direct-to-DVD movie from DC and Warner Brothers. Unlike past movies which have been based on some pre-existing comic work, this movie is 100% original and from the mind of beloved and legendary creator Bruce Timm, who this movie marks his grand return to DC animation after a long hiatus post The Dark Knight Returns 1 and 2. Going into this movie, it's important to note that unlike past films, Gods and Monsters is far from standalone. In fact, it was part of a major multimedia project that also spawned prequel comic books for each of its individual members, as well as animated shorts that premiered exclusively on Machinima, all in an attempt to help fill out the backstory. Timm's vision for Gods and Monsters was to create a brand new world where Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were as radically reimagined as possible, which is why our Superman is the son of Zod, not Jor-El, Batman is Kirk Langstrom, not Bruce Wayne, and Wonder Woman is not an Amazon, but instead a new god. The new, darker, and more violent version of the League dispense zero-tolerance justice from the Tower, a fancy mansion version of the Watchtower. It's not long, however, until they find themselves drawn into a frame-up conspiracy linked to the mysterious murders of some of the greatest scientific minds in all of the DC universe. Right off the bat, it's clear to see that this is a beautiful-looking movie. All the new designs really pop, and man should do a ton of visual storytelling on their own. The voice cast is also on point. Benjamin Bratt does great as this world's Superman, raised by migrant workers and who developed a totally different view of truth and justice. A nice little take on the whole Superman as the ultimate immigrant American dream type of storyline. Bones Tamara Taylor, who as far as I can tell is new to the voice acting game, shows her chops as Becca, a feisty spitfire who takes what she wants when she wants. The only real weak link in the chain as far as I can see is actually, sadly, Michael C. Hall, who no doubt was told to play his Batman as cold and emotionless as possible. I mean, he is a vampire after all. Sadly, he does it too well, and even before he gets turned into a bloodsucker, speaks with this really annoying monotone. This also becomes quite problematic because, once again, even though we're in a crazy Elseworlds, the majority of the movie's narrative falls on the shoulders of Batman, who has way more skin in the actual goings-on than the other two do. The big themes of Gods and Monsters really boil down to how much power is too much. Should superhumans work with or for the government at all, and if so, who's using who in that scenario? And of course, the big one is nature versus nurture. Had these three heroes lived different lives, maybe one's closer to the main universe versions of themselves, would they have turned out the way they did? These are all very interesting questions that the movie allows you to draw your own conclusions to. Granted, I think the film also kind of hits a major pitfall by never letting us see how this crazy new world order affects everyday people. Oh sure, we get some angry protesters in the beginning and Lois Lane shows up to kind of soapbox, but we're also told that people walk around on eggshells because of this, kind of tyrannical Justice League, but we never actually get to see that happen. Heck, for the most part, the world of Justice League Gods and Monsters seems to be business as usual. As far as the whole mystery plot itself goes with the frame-up, I would like to say I would have been able to guess who the bad guy was from a mile away, even if I didn't have a vast working knowledge of obscure DC characters and their quirks, which is strange because the movie also throws out a ton of different Easter eggs that I couldn't imagine getting the full rewards of if I didn't have said knowledge. There's plenty of red herrings to go around, but once the villain actually does reveal themselves and talks about their ultimate plan, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and go, really? This is why? This is what you're doing? Another slight issue the movie has in regards to its flashbacks. Oh, don't get me wrong, they're fun little mini stories, especially the one with Becca that takes us to Apocalypse for what can only be described as Game of Thrones style shenanigans, but they just go on for way too long and hinder the main plot. I assumed the whole point of having one-shots and tie-in comics and tie-in webisodes was to help get this stuff out of the way before we got to the main movie. I am, however, glad to say that the movie didn't skimp on the action. The choreography was tight and on point. I especially liked seeing what the new Wonder Woman could do with her sword that also doubles as a boom tube, and seeing a Superman who is completely uninhibited in the way that he uses his powers. Perhaps the most surprising aspect about Justice League Gods and Monsters is at the end of the day, this darker, more topsy-turvy take on the DCU ended up having a much more positive and hopeful ending than I thought it really could have had, wherein the heroes actually seek to reevaluate all their choices and maybe make a change. That for better or worse, flawed or not, these people are indeed the heroes of this universe and they're going to need to save the world. I also feel like the door is left open in a big way that if this universe gets really popular and catches on, they will be able to go back and make more. And you know what? If they did, I would be fine with that. I'd very much like to see what other non-Trinity superheroes would be like in this Gods and Monsters universe. In summation, Justice League Gods and Monsters is maybe not the Titanic organic return to form I was hoping for from Bruce Timm, but it still stands head and shoulders over the last couple DC animated outings, which is why, for its big ideas and cool design aesthetics, I give this one a 7.5 out of 10.